Here we go again. It's time again, everybody. The Japanese anime industry has learned nothing. We are looking at the biggest, most massive season ever. And I don't mean hype levels. I really honestly don't mean hype levels. I mean, there's a lot of really good shows coming. Don't get me wrong. But no, I mean sheer volume, quantity. To be clear, the fall 2023 anime season is pretty much winter all over again. Currently, as of the recording of this video, we are looking at 68 TV and ONA anime series that are going to be hitting our eyeballs in less than a month. Shield Hero, Spy Family, Goblin Slayer, Eminence Shadow, Frieren, Dr. Stone, Tokyo Revengers, Faraway Paladin, Undead Unlock, Apothecary Diaries, Girlfriends coming back, You Were Experienced, I Wasn't, 100 Girlfriends, the list goes on. Now, for those that weren't around during the winter 2023 anime season, or maybe just wasn't paying enough attention, yes, back then, we seen a massive amount of anime. I think it was a total of 66 titles. And the fear that we had at the time was that the anime industry was kind of eating itself. Like, it was running out of resources. They didn't have enough people. It didn't have enough actors. They didn't have enough animators. They didn't have enough directors. The studios were empty. People were losing their jobs. They were shipping everything overseas to animate there. It wasn't a good time. Way back late February, I was reporting that we had a total of 16 delays. And yes, some of that was shows that were in the late fall, and some of it was delays out of spring. But it was a lot of evidence around that time that these were a lot of delays that were caused by what was happening in winter. Yes, a lot of anime is animated before the show even airs, and so it trying to be animated back here in fall the previous year, it's going to cause delays for winter. And then when you have shows delaying in winter, it means that they're going to push schedules out of spring. It didn't look good. I mean, a healthy season should probably have no more than maybe 2 shows get delayed. And even those shows should probably only get like 2 episodes delayed. You might see a season where you have 1 show gets a full delay. But again, we were looking at like 4 shows were delayed completely out of winter. It was a terrible trend. And on top of that, there's a big question mark of who the hell is watching all this stuff besides me, because it's what I do. Nobody has the time to watch 66 shows. Even at that, 1 or 2 shows a season. Everything else seems like it's just gonna die. And while I had my speculations of why it was happening, this idea that these producers are making so much money by licensing it overseas that it just makes so much money for them to just spend a little bit of money to a studio that's gonna struggle and accept the job for poor pay, just so they can get that overseas licensing, get that quick money jab. And we even had a producer come out and pretty much blow the whistle and tell everybody exactly what was going on. I reported this way back in winter because, yes, this was pretty much a response to how much anime was coming out. Producer Toshio Okada, who of course is a co-founder and former president of Gainax, had pretty much confirmed a lot of my fears. This idea of them trying to produce a lot of stuff for a very little amount of money and all these studios accepting that poor pay because there's nothing else to really accept. But he took it a step further and kind of explaining why there is this large amount. Because yes, my thoughts there does produce this idea of why we would have a good amount of anime coming out and nothing seems to be hurting that much except for poor production qualities and delays. But he sort of explained why we have a massive number of titles coming out and put it in a way that really does make sense. The thing that he revealed to everybody was this concept of production committees and investment caps. For those that don't know, most anime is produced by a production committee. This is the people that have the money. A studio does not have the money most times unless you have a case like MAPPA who kind of invested themselves. Most studios don't have money to make their own anime. They have to have the money given to them and the project they're supposed to be working on for that money. It's a transaction every time an anime is made. And as the name would lead you to believe, a production committee is multiple people or multiple companies. But the key thing that he was pointing out was that there is an investment percentage. Your percentage ownership of a property is based on how much value you put to the project. So the one that has the highest percentage out of everybody that's involved in the production committee has the majority ownership. So the thing that Okada was revealing was this investor cap. Because the majority owner, the one that's starting the project, wants to have ownership, he doesn't want to spend that much money. So he's setting the cap from the very beginning. If I only want to pay $2, I'm going to make sure that everybody else only pays $1. And then we go to buy something and we buy something really cheap. And that's what they were basically doing. Them throwing out $100,000 and then preventing anybody else from going over $100,000, we have a very measly amount that's going to make an anime. But the other thing that he revealed was you had like so many people are trying to get into the anime industry. There's so many companies, especially in China, that are wanting to get involved with anime because anime is big right now. And they would come in and say, hey, we want to produce an anime. Here's $15 million. And they're like, well, that's great, but we don't want you to have majority ownership. Instead, why don't we make your portfolio for how many anime you have funded really big, and that'll look really good, right? And they've tricked them into basically spending a little money everywhere. And thus, you're not getting a $15 million anime, you're getting a bunch of very minutely paid for anime. And that's what's really hurting the industry. And again, that seems like it's going to continue going into the fall season. To give people a perspective, way back in 2021, we were looking at maybe 40 shows a season. And that at the time seemed like a lot, to be honest. But it made sense back then because as we got to 2021, we were seeing the anime industry was booming. Overseas distribution was booming. This is about the time in which we've seen that overseas distribution was actually going over the amount that they were making domestically just for the anime. So it's a thriving economy. It's something that's doing good. Now again, studios are still getting paid terribly, but at least it showed the anime industry is thriving. And even into 2022, it was still about 40 shows per season. It wasn't until 2023, suddenly out of nowhere, winter, we get 60. Spring, back down to 48. Summer's coming back down, but again, going back into fall, bam, we're right back up to 60. Now, let's be honest, everybody that's seen, oh my gosh, they have over 60 shows again, what is Aniplex doing? That's the initial response I had, because what happened in winter? Aniplex was the worst because it seemed like every single one of their shows was delayed. They had all their shows were getting, even their spring shows like Saint Cecilia was getting delayed too. They weren't doing good. They were like the worst case of everybody because I think Aniplex, being a studio that often outsources most everything, they couldn't find anybody. That was their problem. Thankfully, this time around, this season, fall, they're not that involved, as much as I would think they would be. So you start from the top, Aniplex, which is pretty much going to be the producers. They have 4 total shows. Their studio, A1 Pictures, is doing 2 of them, and then Cloverworks, the other studio, is doing 1. So it's not like they have their hands in too many things. This isn't like Winter was. Honestly, the production groups that has like the most shows for next season is like Kadokawa, Pony Canyon, Kodansha, Shueisha, which yes, we're talking like Kadokawa has 8 shows, Pony Can 6. But this is kind of normal for them. These are some big bucks companies that are just throwing money into anime to kind of promote their titles and stuff. So I didn't really see anything looking through the producers, something out of line. Now, when I look into the studios, that's where I start to have my fears. This is where I'm starting to see signs of what shows can possibly end up getting delayed. First on my target was Diamedia. Now keep in mind, even though a studio has a lot of titles they're going to be doing for a season, doesn't mean they're producing all of those at the same time. And yes, in most cases, it's not the same team. Sometimes studios will have multiple teams, and yes, in some cases, they may have pre-produced it. But Diamedia was the only one that kind of scared me. They have 2 total titles. And this is from a studio that typically has like a 1 to 2 season break between each of their titles they do. I don't really remember them ever doing more than 1 title in a single season. So I'd probably keep an eye on what Diamedia is working on. Those titles being the Saint Magic Powers Omnipotent, which please don't mess up that one. I really love that show. And the other one being the Deranged Detective. The other one that really concerns me is Geek Toys. I have never been a massive fan of Geek Toys because most of their productions have been either barely hanging on or just falling apart at some point. But yes, they will be returning with Dead Mount Deathplay Part 2 and Miggy and Dolly. Now, I think based on the previews that I've seen for Miggy and Dolly, it does look like that show might possibly be pre-produced. Like, they may have it done because what I have seen of it, and I haven't really seen too much of it, so don't take my word on this as 100%. What I have seen of it does look like they have done quite a bit on it, and it's something they've been talking about for quite a while. So that might be possibly one of those cases where maybe they had this already in works, and maybe only Dead Mount Deathplay is the only one they're going to be working on at the time. So that's, I still have a concern there, like I said, because I don't trust that studio whatsoever. It's just not a very high quality studio. Leading Films is another concern for me because they have technically 3 shows they're doing. Tokyo Revengers, Goblin Slayer 2, and additionally, they're still working on Rurouni Kenshin. Now again, there's a possibility Rurouni Kenshin might be already done, but that's going for a 2-core show. And again, they're not really a studio that does multiple shows. I think they've had one time where they've done 2 shows at once. Now, the one that I am the most concerned about for studios is honestly OLM. Now, 2 of their titles they're going to be doing is CoPro, and one of them I've heard hints that it's already done in production, but I haven't seen a confirmation on it yet. Yes, they have Dark Gathering, which that's the one that I've heard rumors that it's already completed. I don't have a confirmation on that yet. We have technically the Apothecary Diaries, which looks super gorgeous based on the PVs, and we've seen stuff on that for a while now. And then we have Faraway Paladins going to be coming back. This is the one I've had the most concern for because I love all 3 of these titles. Or at least I love Dark Gathering, and I really enjoy Faraway Paladins' first season, and Apothecary Diaries looks gorgeous. This is one that I'm the most scared for because it's got the most to lose for me personally. But again, Apothecary Diaries, I think they've been working on that for quite a while. Faraway Paladin, I don't know. Dark Gathering, like I said, there is some hints that it's already done. So hopefully OLM holds things together, and even if so, maybe possibly having it being co-pro with some other companies might actually help it. So we'll see on that one. And the other studio I have concerns about is Project Number 9, because they have 3 titles going for it. They have A Girl and Her Guard Dog, they have Heat the Pig Liver, and then they have Vexations of a Vampire Shut-In. That's the only other one that's kind of concerning for me. And again, that's another one because I don't really necessarily see them working on multiple projects at once, and to suddenly have 3 projects does get my worries up. Other than that, yes, Silverlink has 2 titles, which I don't think they're going to have a problem. Studio Kai's got 2 titles that I'm not too concerned about, and Wit Studio has 2, but they're co-proing on both of those. So those are what I've kind of seen looking at the studios themselves, but it all kind of points to this idea that putting aside how many a studio is doing, putting aside how much a production company is dumping money into projects, the bigger concern is having more anime that we're not seeing like any signs that they're having like this influx of animators. There's no signs of things improving for animators. If anything, we have that looming threat of the taxation towards the animators and freelancers that's just going to probably put them out of their jobs. Nothing here shows me that they can handle this like they couldn't handle it in winter. Unless, well, I guess there is the factor that I don't think there's much reports coming out of China in regards to them possibly outsourcing to them and not having too many problems, but there's always another variant popping up out of nowhere, and then we're going to have that same problem again. That's pretty much what happened to Aniplex. Every delay was, yes, the C card. And yeah, I can see most people kind of questioning, well, Andrew, who cares? More anime, it's great, right? The problem that I see here is that the only benefit is the influx of anime and more shows to watch. It's a more chance for you to find something that you will like. If you like sports, or you like, slice of life, period piece dramas, all this kind of stuff, we have a huge variety, and I'll get into more detail on each individual one when I make videos on the next season coming up. Make sure to subscribe. I'll be doing my most anticipated shows for the season, and we'll be doing a podcast where we cover every show of the season and tell you what's in it and all that blah, blah, blah. Plug, plug, plug. The problem is that there's too many cons that come with the idea of them having, we're getting close to 70. We still have wage issues for the animators themselves. We still have studios accepting way too little pay from these production committees. We have all the devastating effects that comes from having delays, scheduling problems with animators and production teams, marketing costs, timelines and sales of source materials, the pushback of other projects, the fact that they miss their time slots for broadcasts, and yes, shows that are in winter that could possibly be pushed back because something is delayed now. And probably the biggest issue that I usually face is that aspect of it being something that almost harms something that could possibly be good. Getting that anime adaptation of something that you go, wow, I actually like this, and then 2 episodes in, it's either delayed or it just looks like crap. No benefit comes from having too many shows per season. And as I said before, even though I think that a lot of these producers are banking on the idea of groups like Crunchyroll licensing it, eventually we're going to get to a point where they're not going to. They're not going to want to license all this stuff. But we'll see. We'll see. But that's me ranting about Japan not learning anything, which unfortunately is a thing now. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this video and me ranting as per usual. If you like this video, make sure that like button down below. Comment. What do you think? Are you like, whatever? I'll take all the anime I can get. I don't care about delays. Whatever. I'll just wait if it gets delayed. Let me know in the comments down below. Again, if you are new to the channel, make sure that subscribe button to get on my content. I do news reviews, first impressions, top list. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, like I said, I'll be doing my most anticipated shows for the season coming up. It might be a big list because there's so many shows, but there is a lot of really cool stuff coming up. Frieren is an easy one for me to say. I've been talking about Frieren way too much lately. Additionally, like I said, we will have our podcast on here where me and Chris will sit down and go through every single one of them, let you know the synopsis, who's working on it, anybody special behind the scenes that might be working on it, directors, writers, script composition, all that kind of stuff. And additionally, our thoughts on it and if we're going to be excited for it. With all that said, I thank y'all for watching and y'all take care.